Hello, everyone. Today we are with Andrew. He is the master of online marketing. He's been around in this industry forever. And today we are lucky to hear from his advice about 6 components on how to master your marketing, how to turn clicks into clients, and how to basically master the art of online conversion. So we're going to talk about a lot of things from generating leads to basically getting into kitchen tables or getting into clients. So with that, let's get started. Let's learn about you first, Andrew. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I started as an agent in the industry. That was over a decade ago. There's still fax machines, and you had to print out 6 copies of an offer back then, and then plus the clean one for the lawyer. So it was a long time ago that I got in the industry, it feels like. And then I started doing a lot of training on because I built my business mostly either online or by referrals. And most of my referrals were actually the other agents in my office referring me their online leads. And so I would close their online leads and then give them a referral fee on it when they couldn't do it. So that was actually where a lot of my business came
So you had
from.
Zillow Flex when it wasn't a thing, basically.
Yeah, well, Zillow it wasn't even in Canada, so
Yeah. Okay.
we had none of that. But so, and I was actually one of the few people who ever got business from Google Plus. Like, I might be one of 2 people in the world that ever saw a positive ROI there.
Google Plus. Wow.
Yeah, that's
That's a long
some
time ago.
yeah, it was. Just to date myself a little bit. And then I got recruited by one of the big brands to travel North America training agents, basically how to work your business online. And then every time you do, I'm sure you've seen it before if you've done trainings, where every time you do that, they're like, can I just pay you to do this for me? And eventually I realized there was a pretty good business there. So I started Just Sell Homes, which is our marketing agency. And then about just over a year ago, I also bought a trade publication for the Canadian real estate industry called Real Estate Magazine. So I own both a marketing agency and then a trade publication for the industry as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're gonna get to RAM in a bit because we want to see what you did there. He was just telling me earlier that they grew the traffic by so much by what percent? Like probably like 10
I
times,
forget the
right?
percent off the top of my head, but when we bought it, because they had shut it down, it was down to 5,000 page views a month. And in our first year, we were just over 1 million.
Wow, that's
It's a
amazing.
good
That's
jump.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yes, that's amazing. Good job. All right,
appreciate it.
so without further ado, let's get to it. So, how to turn clicks to clients. That's what we're talking about today.
Yeah,
You're going to cover 6 really important steps
yeah.
that are going to help you overall in your marketing, and especially with leads management, leads nurturing, and so on. So let's get to it. What are these 6 steps?
So it's an interesting thing where we came up with this concept, because what we find is when people are starting online marketing, they hear this idea, they're like, okay, the easiest way to get leads online, like a list of homes campaign. Let's use that as the example. Like, I hear I should run a list of homes campaign to get me cheap leads. So you go run it, you put it out there, but you haven't really looked at everything around it that can make it work. So it's like, what are the conversion steps? What is the mentality of the people coming into it? How much do they know about you already? And what's your email marketing game for? This whole process, they just hear, oh, I should run an ad for a list of homes. They get a lead and then they don't convert them. And then they're like, oh, online marketing doesn't work. It's because you have to look at everything. So what we did is we created this framework to kind of evaluate your marketing, and then you can see where your gaps are. So the first one is discover. So this is pretty straightforward. It's, how do people who don't know that you exist typically discover that you exist? So that's where we look at, paid ads can work for that. Signs out in front of for sale signs, billboards, SEO, referrals. Referrals are the gold
The general
standard.
awareness, like that
Yeah,
they become aware.
essentially awareness. Just
Okay.
how do people discover? And then the next one is conversation. So how do you get them to start talking to you? Because a lot of people, what we find, this is a big one, is they jump too quickly from, all right, I need you to book an appointment with me today. Sometimes people need that little bit of nurture. So this is where for us social media comes in a lot. Well, let's just get them talking, and they've found out we exist. Now let's get them talking to us. And then that leads nicely into step 3, which is how do you get them to join your database. And this is also one where we think, if you don't have it all mapped out, it makes sense why everyone just gets name, email, phone number and hounds the phone. where for sometimes it makes sense just to collect email. Like you don't even necessarily need their name and phone number at the beginning,
Interesting.
but you need the rest dialed in. So like you collect their contact information and then start your email marketing campaigns. So that join phase, you're more just thinking, how can I get their contact information so I can add them into my database? Then once you're in your database, you can start that next step of converting them into clients. And that next step for some could be like obviously going for that hard sell of like, are you ready to go now? For others, I mean, okay, now I'm going to get their name and phone number, right? Like, what can I offer them that might get that, or might get their address? And I'm going to move them a little bit closer and a little bit closer. But that's when everyone has to map out. But it's like, and then what are you giving people to get them to join? So I've read this book. It was called Book Yourself Solid by Michael Port 10 plus years ago when I first started my career. And he basically had this chapter around the concept of always have something to invite someone to. And that doesn't have to mean like an in-person event or even an event when he says like invite someone to it. That could be invite them to get a free home evaluation, invite them to get a neighborhood price report, invite them to your virtual webinar, invite them
like
out,
basically put it behind some kind of a value. So they wanna get that value, they will come see you where you will see them.
You always have to have it ready. And that's kind of that part of the key is like anytime you're talking to like when I started, I did terrible. Like I knocked on 3,000 plus doors. I did not do well with it. But a lot of it is like at the time I took this advice from someone, was just like, just go introduce yourself around the neighborhood and build brand value. Terrible idea. What I would have done now going back is I would look at, okay, I was in this area called the Hills of St. Andrews. What I would do today is I would build the Hills of St. Andrews price report. And I would knock on doors saying like, hey, we're creating this. We're going to send it out, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. We're creating a Hills of St. Andrews price report. We're going to go over what's sold in the neighborhood, what's been on the market, and everything you need to know so you know what's going on with pricing around here and what's happening with the real estate market. Would you like to sign up? You can just put your email in there. Right. So now instead of being like, hey, I'm Andrew, I'm introducing myself in case you ever want to buy or sell, I'm building a list of just the people who live in the neighborhood so I can stay in touch with them.
So again, going back to that value-driven marketing. So you want to give them value, so they come back and they do it. So
exactly,
what are the rest of the steps? I mean, we got to dissect.
Steps, so
right,
they've joined. Now they're going to get into conversion. So this is now they're in your database. Now we're working on the conversion piece. So the first step is what we do is we try to find the quick movers right away. So who comes in? That's like, because there are always going to be a percent of leads that are ready to go in the next 30, 60, 90 days. You want to give them an option that right away they can take that. But then everyone else who's more longer term, you're pushing them over to your longer term conversion process. But you have to have both that short term to find those quick wins. And that could be your ISAs. It could be a series of emails and texts and phone calls that go out. And then everyone who doesn't opt in, then you don't just say, well, let's get rid of them. No, put them in a long-term nurture campaign. And now let's look on long-term conversion. Like you want to think both short and long-term with your lead conversion. And most people in the industry focus 100% of their attention on that short-term conversion. And if they don't convert right away, let's get rid of them. No, like you're still paid for the lead. Keep working it. Like, especially if you can do it in a more automated way, great. Stay in touch with them forever until they unsubscribe or you legally can't follow up with them anymore. Then the next step after that, which is one that actually permeates across all of them, because I think of this more as a wheel than I do as like a funnel, for example, because like that, the more you get them all spinning, the faster the whole business machine moves. So the next one's trust. So what do you do specifically that helps people trust that you're the right person to do this with? So like, even if you've converted them into a client, they still have to trust you. So like, I love case studies, right? Like case studies and Google reviews are some of the best tools for this. Like a Google My Business profile is an amazing tool that's like really have like, I was actually at a conference the other day and this woman was showing like, she actually posts every single day to her Google My Business profile.
Wow.
And that's not something that a lot of people do. In the first month of doing that, she went from 6 to 20 calls from her profile. Like that's such an easy win of like, you're already,
so that's like your
on
online
social
validation. So people want to look you up, see what you're doing. So what happens when I actually Google Andrew, right? So when I actually Google him, like what is the online review? What do I see? What is a social proof per se?
Yeah, and it's like that brochure of like anytime they want, they can pick up this brochure and be like, Okay, he's an expert. I know what he's doing.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you
So
put that there.
that's how I basically describe. And we can break into this like more, but
Yeah.
that's how I describe Facebook business. Like it's not
Yeah.
gonna get you views, but it's an online verification that
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
reviews, you have your online posting, you're doing all these things. If someone looks you up, they would see something solid.
Yeah.
I think that's the
So then
idea.
once we get them trusting you, now you got to look at how do I earn their long-term loyalty? Like the stat's been repeated a million times at conferences in the industry of like 78% of people would reuse the same agent, but they can't remember their name. So you need a plan to bring them back. Right.
I think you
So it's like,
summarized this that quite a bit, but yes.
yeah,
That was,
like, yeah, like,
like they would say they would use the agent, but 10 years later they wouldn't. But yeah.
yeah.
So I think
It's like,
you said it nicely too.
yeah, but like, if you go to conferences, you'll hear it once a year, guaranteed.
Yeah.
No matter what. So we look at it from the long-term loyalty standpoint. So there's a lot of really good ways to do it. Like I love client events, and people think client events, they think big things, right? But they can be simple. Like one of the best client events for generating referrals and building relationships, hire a photographer, send them to the park for the day, and tell your clients they can get an updated family photo for free. Everybody wants that. You don't have a family, like bring your dog. Doesn't matter. Get headshots for work. I paid a photographer. They're coming to this park or they're coming to this photo studio, and I've getting you all professional photos of whether it's your family, your dog, for work, doesn't matter. Come here. And that gives you email follow-ups with them. That gives you social posts during the event. That gives you follow-up emails. That gives you FaceTime one-on-one because you're going to be standing next to the photographer during the whole event too, talking to people as they're coming. And when they're getting their photos, you're talking to the people who are in line to come next to it. And then you're there and putting that FaceTime in. Like that's a great client event. And you can do the same like at Christmas time. Do it with Santa. Hire a Santa Claus. Get a photographer and be like, don't wait in the mall all day. And then like right before you get up, he goes on break. Like I hired a Santa for you. Come get your photos and you can like sign up and grab your slot. Like do it quickly. No crying kids this way. Like make it really nice for them. And then still do some big ones. Like I love stuff like renting a movie theater out and people have to donate to the local food bank to get in. But do that. That's a great one. On the digital side, like annual CMAs, like people send happy house anniversary cards on the anniversary of the purchase. Add in what their house is worth now. Like we found one email that works really well is basically saying like, hey John, your house has gone up 5% in the last year. That means that your home is now worth $75,000 more than it was last year. If you've done anything to raise or lower the value of your home in the last 12 months, I'm happy to come by and give you an updated valuation. Just let me know.
Perfect. It's perfect.
And then we add in, now that your home is worth 75,000 more in equity, here's what your options are. 1, do nothing, keep paying it down. 2, takes them out, buy an investment property. Takes them out, go on vacation. Takes them out, do a renovation, buy a cottage. Like just lay out the options. I always start with option 1, do nothing, just keep paying it down. Or like takes them out and get a bigger home. Like perfect. You give them those options, and it's that type of thing once a year. That's incredibly valuable to them. And all you have to do is know what the prices went up in the last year, apply that to what you told them the year before, and now you're good. Like a really simple, easy thing you can do.
So don't do an actual valuation. That's the tip.
Yeah, and well, that's you can't do it without seeing the house, right? Yeah. Like so, like if they bought last year at 500,000, the market's gone up 5%. That's an easy one, right? Like that's roughly speaking what their home's worth now, anyways. And then you just add like if you've done anything that might have raised or lowered the value of your home, here's what we can do to get that. So
going back to the 6 steps, let's go step by step and break it down. Yeah. So the first one was awareness, right? So I believe there's 2 types of awareness, right? The first one is I've seen your ad on the street, I can't remember. 2 is you're everywhere, you're omnipresent, I can see you everywhere. How do you go from 1 to 2? Because there's always this spray and pray kind of advertising that everyone has seen, just like in the online world, that would be an awareness ad, which is like hit as many people as possible, versus a targeted ad, which is like I want to target these specific people on this community, and so on. So let's talk about the awareness phase first.
Yeah. So I mean, it depends on if you're going like this. Also, we have to look at from the perspective of where are you in your business. If you're a team doing 600 deals a year, you can make broader statements. and it still works because it can bring you a lot of business. If you're doing 10 deals a year, you want to niche that down as much as possible in a way that the bigger guys won't do.
So in other words, if you're a top agent, I'll take Vancouver as an example because I'm sitting here, and you're putting bus ads in a bus that just goes around entire Vancouver. If you're a top agent doing 600 deals a year, you can do that because you have awareness in all these markets. But if you're a new agent or like you're doing 10 deals a year, you might not want to do that because you can't really track where it goes. It doesn't have a reassurance factor.
Are a horrible investment for an agent just starting out, and an amazing investment for the top agent.
I think we should make this the title of the webinar. Billboards are a horrible investment for top agent. But okay.
Yeah. So it's like this is one that I always get into with people is like, it's a big thing. I'll give you an example. When I started my marketing agency, an agent literally doing 500 deals a year calls me up, and I went to his office, and I'm presenting him like what I think his marketing plan online should be. And he goes, all right, Andrew, this is great. If we're going to work together, though, you have to be exclusive to me. And I was like, I mean, I'm not against it, but why? And he goes, because anything I ever do, right away, every single person in my marketplace copies me. I get a website, everyone else gets the same website provider. I got a CRM, they all get the CRM. I hire a social media company, everyone hires the same social media company. So we're going to do this. You have to agree that no one in my marketplace can hire you. But his next sentence was the part that was really interesting. He says, but nothing I've ever done online before has worked. So all these people are copying everything he does, but it's actually never worked for him. Right? It's like, if you don't know where something fits in your strategy and how this is all going to go together, you shouldn't be doing it. Like, you don't know, like, another example, like we were doing workshops. We advertised them online. We filled up a first-time home buyer workshop for a client. Workshop 1, they were going to take care of the follow-up. So all we did was generate people who were interested in attending. We generated 18 registrations, I believe, on that one. The night comes of the event, not a single person showed up. So I asked them, what'd you guys do for follow-up? Well, we just assumed they'd show up. So the next one, we put a confirmation email. Then we told them to call them the next day to confirm that they're coming. And then we sent them an invite a friend email. Then we sent them an email the day before the event, and then the morning of event. Next event, 90% show up rate.
That's perfect.
But if you just see an online ad for a first-time homebuyer workshop, you don't necessarily know about all that stuff happening that actually made it work. So it's like, you have to understand all these pieces before you go steal someone else's idea and start putting it out there, or it's not going to work for you. So you have to kind of figure out what are all these little pieces that actually make it work. And a lot of people also will like look at that first one and be like, nope, first-time homebuyer workshops don't work. When all you had to do was tweak that process from when the lead was generated to when the workshop happened to get people to show up. Like, you've already generated this interest, so you know there's interest. So you know the break is somewhere after that, and it's about tweaking that piece.
That makes sense. Yeah. So now, tell me this, Andrew. I am picking between an awareness ad and a targeted ad. So for the audience to know, an awareness ad can hit, like, I don't know, 20,000 people, and it just shoots as many people as possible. A targeted ad is, I'm picking, like, I don't know, less than 1,000 people in this specific community. I might not even reach all the 1,000. I will probably like hit 400 of them. Same budget, but one is targeted towards lead generation and actual awareness. In the long run, the other one is kind of like a bigger audience. And there are different types of ads, and people use it for different ads. So let's talk about this a little bit, so our audience can understand it and can get a sense of it.
Yeah. Well, even like let's take Facebook ads as an example. Like, you have to do the broader ads now with the housing category, but you use that broader awareness ad to build your more targeted list. Because even though when you do a housing category ad that's hyper targeted, you can now actually retarget people engaging with that broader one. So what we might do something like is, okay, let's say our audience are people who want to downsize. So they're looking at 55 plus, but our ads can only go to everyone over the age of 18 because it's a housing ad. Well, we're going to put a video in there, and that video might be as simple at the beginning as saying, are you over 55 and looking at getting a smaller home because you have too much space? if you're not over 55, the odds of you keeping to watch that video pretty small.
Okay.
So we're going to keep that kind of idea where the entire video's actual goal is to get anyone who's not over 55 to stop watching. We want only people over 55 to watch this video.
So all of a sudden you're going from like, I don't know, 500,000 people down to probably less than
and
30,000.
As
right?
Facebook sees it's the older people that are engaging with the video, they're going to show it more and more to that demographic. Then the next ad you run is only to people who watch that video. Now you know
so you do retargeting of the previous ad.
Yeah. So you say like anyone who's watched either 50%, 75%, or 95% of this video, let's show them this ad. And that ad, the offer is going to be very specific for that audience.
So you've gone from 500,000, you didn't have keywords, you didn't have any of that stuff. All you did was you used the specific tagline to make sure they're interested. Then they watched it, then you narrowed it down and you created a specific ad after. And that's genius. I think that's pretty cool. So the idea is you wanna go from there. So what is your advice for an agent that's I will go with Toronto and I would go with like a suburb of Toronto. Let's say they want to run ads in Oshawa and they want to get started there. They're specific to, they're really into like relocation or downsizing.
Yep.
Give me an example. How would you set this up and how would you do it?
So first you have to have a catchy video. Again, because of the housing category. So there's two routes to go. So option one, housing video, where you kind of talk about the moving process, but again, you really make it specific to 55 plus, and then you blast that video out to everybody and let Facebook optimize for the 55 plus crowd. And then you now offer a more targeted like lead magnet. So maybe it's a guide to downsizing or something like that. Like there's a few different options there where you offer a piece of value that only the 55 plus community really care about. If you're going even older, like you're doing like 75 plus, maybe.
And that's in the retargeting part, right? It's not in the main part.
Yeah.
The main part
is
the
retargeting the video people. Yeah. Like you might do here's the top 10 retirement communities in Durham. Right? Like it could be a very simple, hey, we've gone out and we have all these. So check them out. Right? So they download it, you start your follow-up process. The other option is not to do a housing ad. So now we're just going to do a video that's targeted to 55 plus year olds that's not real estate related. Because now we don't have to use the housing category. So we might do something of like, this is my favorite retirement community in here. Or this to find a local event that generally only appeals to older. Like if you're going really old, it'd be like, hey, here's the best bingo hall in Oshawa, right? Like typically you're getting an older crowd going to bingo. You might get a few young people in there, but typically you're getting an older crowd. Or like what we're actually about to launch for one client in Alberta is he's getting the list of all the seniors times at the local community center. Because like the seniors have class times at the same time, and we're only going to run the video during those class times. The idea being, as they're there, if they have a phone, which we realize they're not a large percent of people that might be on their Facebook on their phone as seniors at the event, but the ones that are, they see the video. Now when anyone watches that video, we hit them with a more targeted ad. So it's like we know where those people are going to be, so let's target them with non-housing focused ads. And again, can be very simple ads that are just like, here's my favorite thing about this community. It doesn't even have to be like that complicated. It could be like, this is my favorite restaurant that serves a 4:00 dinner, early bird special, or right, like something that would appeal to them that they're probably going to watch. And then now you have this video that only people in your target demographic, that's an older community, would actually want to sit and go through. Right. Now, when you run a housing ad, you put your housing category on, but you still only show it to people who watch that video. So now you know this is the right people to give my housing offer to.
Okay. So now we've mastered the art of awareness. And I always say it takes a lot of time for people to actually become aware of you, right? So it could take up to 6 months before people are actually aware of you. They could have heard your name, but like knowing what you do, what's your specialty and all that, that's all awareness, right?
That helps you convert too. Like if you call someone, and even if they don't necessarily 100% know you, you can at least be like, you sound familiar, or I've seen you around. That helps with your conversion because it
Oh,
adds
yeah.
that legitimacy of you're not some random guy trying to scam them.
Yeah.
And
So what I did
that
in
can
my
help.
day as an agent was I would see you at a party. I would immediately add you to my Instagram or Facebook, and I would
Yeah.
bombard you with content. And the
Yeah.
idea is that you keep seeing that content, so you're reminded of who I am and what I do. And when I see them at another party, I wouldn't remember who they are, but they remember me. And they're like, Sam,
Yeah.
yeah, we met, blah blah blah, or we did DMs. I'm like, did we? Okay.
Yeah.
So it
I
would
did
help
that
to
with
know who the end is. But
basketball. So I
yes.
never wanted to be that like annoying parent who would go to someone and be like, "Oh, by the way, I'm coaching your kids, but I'm also a realtor. We should talk." Because that's about as tacky as they come. So what I started doing is I would run a targeted ad to the gym during tournaments, and half the ad would just be my face. And at the time I was with Remax, and the other half I just put the balloon. Because if you see the Remax balloon, you know right away it's a realtor.
Yeah.
And the other side of it was just my face. But the ad would have nothing else. And then I would get parents coming up to me, funny thing, at halftime I was on my phone, I noticed you're in real estate. They're like, what a funny coincidence. And then we started talking about it. And
That's
like it's
interesting.
little things like that. People start being like, oh, okay, let's chat some more.
That's a golden nugget there. Okay, so
Yeah.
what was the next step
Yeah.
after the awareness? Now we get into lead nurture, right? I think this is like
So after the
before that.
awareness, you got to get them to start talking to you. And that doesn't even necessarily they're in your database set, but you want conversations.
Oh, yeah.
And like, so for example, everyone we know who gets a lot of business from Instagram, that happens in stories. Because what happens is people don't necessarily want to do a lot of like sharing private details in like a newsfeed post that everyone can see, but they'll share them over the DMs. So we look at, let's drive as many people into your stories as you can, and then you do your stories in a way that get them to reply. And you can do this in some really simple ways, like just hit reply with your address, and I'll let you know what your home would sell for. Now all of a sudden, this is a really easy, simple process for me of I just have to put my address in Instagram story reply. I don't have to like go to this landing page, fill out all these forms and do all this stuff, then wait for an email and get hounded incessantly. Because I know on Instagram DMs, worst case scenario, I can just block you. Right? Like it gives them that sense of comfort. Where you're like, just reply with this or drop it in below and I'll send you the details about the listing. So you just you can give them that first step, or it could be as simple as just like asking them, what are you planning to make a move in the next 12 months? And you put a poll up in the story. Everyone who says yes, follow up with them, send them a DM, but like get things that start conversations happening.
I think that's awesome. So now you're into conversations. Now that person has said that they're interested. Okay.
Yeah.
You've got a DM. How do you get them into your database, and how do you start nurturing leads? How do you actually turn them into clients? I mean, ideal way is like you wanna get their email so you can start sending them like a weekly roundup of properties or solds or what's happening in the market, or like even a market update from your email center. And there are many solutions, including our email marketing, that does that. But before that, how do you actually go from you know me now to your database?
So that's where, again, we have to look at why they're coming in. And that's where people like everyone tries to like bucket into like this one specific thing. We want to look at the bigger piece. You're like, why is this one person coming into my database? Then you tailor the follow-up to that. If they're coming because you knocked on their door and said, I'm going to send you a once a month price report, that's not the time to hound them about selling their home, because all they're wanting to do right now is stay up to date on what's happening in the market. So that we're going to do a more gentle drip campaign. And that drip campaign, the first one is like, here's what to expect from this price report that you just signed up for. Then the next day, we're going to tell them, like, by the way, we're a real estate agent. If you are ever going to actually think about moving, here's the few ways that we can actually help you. Otherwise, the next one will be coming. Your next price report will be coming soon. If you ever have questions, you can either reply to that or contact me here. But otherwise, thank you for joining. Unsubscribe anytime you don't see the value. Super simple. Because now you're not hounding them. You've built a little bit of trust. And now you can start sending them your regular price reports so they can start seeing it. So again, super simple, super easy to do. And we're big fans of taking that approach. So that's one way you can do it. The next one to do is looking at things like, all right, for the people coming in off like, what would my home sell for campaign? Like, I want to know what my home would sell for. Click here. Well, that you're going to be a little bit more aggressive with that, because if they're filling out something that's like, what would my home sell for? You want to hit phone calls right away. You then, if they don't pick up, you're going to text them something, because the text has a more likely to respond. Then you're going to drop emails onto them. You're going to identify the ones in that group who are going to go. But one of the mistakes that people do is they only rely on that email, texting, phone call process. What you also want to do is they opt into the campaign of what my home sell for, and you're like, great, you either have an automated one that goes out, or you're going to do something like, great, we're going to build out a report and send it to you. That's the thank you page. Well, why are you stopping at the thank you page? So if someone downloads a guy like, what would my house sell for? Be like, great, we're going to send you that report to your inbox shortly on what your home would sell for after we do a little bit of research. Do you want a copy of our guide on how to get your home ready for sale so you can maximize the sale price? Fill out the form below to confirm your interest, and we'll send you a copy of our guide that you can just print out and check off in each room of your house so you can maximize the sale price of your home. It's how the professionals get a house ready for sale. When they opt into that, be like, great, we're going to send that over to you shortly. It should be like, keep an eye on your inbox. Do you know where you're moving to next? Click here to start looking for listings. And now they can go to your site and start looking for listings. And now they've moved on to that next step. So instead of just saying, hey, we're going to be in touch, it's let's give them another thing to do along the route. Because we already know they're interested in selling their home. So that means that they're definitely going to be interested in a guide on how to get the most money for their home. And we also know they have to move somewhere. So let's get them to start looking at those. Then we set up retargeting ads. So once they become a lead, now we're going to retarget them for the first 3 days with a little bit more of an aggressive offer to see if they're looking to sell soon. So you've opted in, you're a lead for the first 3 days. Let's say, like, for actually, we're working with a client who guarantees home sales right now. So his offer is, if we're going to list your house at a price, if it sells for under, we'll pay the difference. Like, we're going to pick a list price. Anything it sells for under that, we'll pay you the difference in cash. So for the first 3 days after someone becomes a lead, they see that offer aggressively. These people really interested in selling their home are going to take it. Everyone else, you then put more into like brand building and trust building ads. So like, you're going to share them testimonials, or you're going to share maybe a digital listing presentation that kind of walks through the value that they can get from it. But that first 3 days, that digital ad is really going to focus in on, can we get them in right away?
That's interesting. That's interesting. So now, let's talk about this. So you have this database of people, and you have different categories of them. Some of them are interested to buy within the next 3 months. Some of them, 6 months. Some of them, it's going to be a year or two. How would you categorize these, and how would you start nurturing them? First of all, what would you do in terms of lead nurture? I know there's like a million CRMs out there, like Follow Up Boss and Wise Agents and so on. But what would you do? How would you go about this?
So I'm not a big fan of those like preset drip campaigns that go for like 24, 36 months at a time. And there's like the same content over and over. It's like, hey, here's 7 ways to winterize your home. Like, all right,
yeah,
thanks. Like, great. Like, send me a pumpkin pie recipe next. I'll find it really interesting. Right? Like, it's not really what you want. So what we are big fans of is a weekly news email, basically, so we call it a link roundup. So it's like the first section of this newsletter might have 3 or 4 links about what's going on in the community. So you're in Vancouver, so it might be, here's 3 or 4 interesting things about what's going on in Vancouver in the news. The next section might be a business highlight. So let's highlight a cool local business that you might want to check out. Then we're going to do a real estate section. This could be market updates, listings. This could be a free home eval offer or something like that, but it's going to be a real estate themed section. Then after that, we might put a couple links to, like, if you are a content creator, like you've made a great video, you want someone to watch it, link to it from there. And then what we started doing is just, we found it kind of like a happy accident, is we end every email like this with a puppy of the week.
Ah, nice.
So it's literally just, the idea is, let's leave them smiling. And we literally just a puppy or a baby animal. We just put a photo of one at the bottom of every email. And it's amazing how often we hear feedback. Like, I'll go to a conference and people will come up and be like, I don't always care to read. Like sometimes I'm just not in the mood to read an email, but I still always open yours because I want to go see the puppy. They're like, so no matter, so they're always scrolling to the bottom, but it's like, that's it. They're like, like I even had the guy recently ended up signing up as a client. He's like, yeah, I've been getting your emails for like 2 years. Some days I'm in the mood to read them. Like I really just like, I have the time and I want to do it, but I always open them. He's like, I'm always scrolling down just to check out the puppy. Like it's a thing to make me smile at the beginning of every day. I'm like, dear, I win. And literally just like one day after a couple of years of
but that's the reason I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna read your next email. Just to make sure that I'm sitting the puppy. There you go. Yeah. There you go. Value driven marketing right there.
It's easy. So we started doing that for clients too. And they're like, we'll get feedback. We're like, yeah, I was over with a client. They're like, yeah, I love your puppy of the week. Like it's such a simple little thing. It just works. Because like one thing I think people mistake when they see value-led marketing is, what does that always mean? There's value in just making someone smile. It doesn't have to be like this thing that makes you money, or like value is making someone smile. So if you can throw in a joke, like another one that worked well for us was trivia. So we might throw at the top of the email a trivia question that's answered at the bottom. And like one that did really well, and I know my main metric for that one doing well was a bunch of people tagged us on social media when we shared it with that same piece of trivia. And it was something like, why do people in Scotland typically paint their doors red? That's a sign that they paid off their mortgage. When it's like tradition, when you pay off your mortgage, you paint your door red.
Interesting.
Like, yeah, it's like one of those like, oh, that's cool. I didn't think of that. Like that's a cool little tradition. Putting trivia like that, and if you can make it local, so if you can do something like that for Vancouver, even better. So it's like, what can we put in that would, it doesn't have to lead them somewhere. It doesn't have, like, you already have their contact information. It doesn't have to lead them to becoming a client necessarily, but it's like, I want you to go like, oh, that's interesting, or oh, that's cute, or like, well, that was fun, or I just smirked a little. But that's enough if you're sending out a weekly email, is just to give them a smile once a week.
That makes sense.
But if in that email, if all you send is a puppy, that's not going to do anything. You still need the other pieces, but you can always end it on that high note. And the reason we put the puppy at the beginning is we don't want someone to open it, look at the puppy, then close it right away. We don't have to scroll all the way to the bottom, because even if they're scrolling relatively quickly, they're probably still getting a glimpse of it, and we might cause them to stop and look.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So what do you want to leave our audience with? So we've gone through awareness to basically lead nurture, getting it. And what was the last step? Did we miss a step in the middle, or did we talk about all the steps?
So it's discover, conversation, join, convert, trust, and loyalty. Okay. But the biggest thing is
we didn't talk about
map
loyalty.
it out.
How did we go about loyalty?
We went with client events and different things like that. But with what I like to do with this is actually write down for each of those 6 what you have in place right now. The majority of people, when they do this exercise, they're like, what specific tactics do you have in place for each of the 6? When you write it out, you will see almost every time we've done this with exercise with someone, there's a clear gap.
Do you have these steps somewhere on your website so we can direct our audience to see it?
Yeah. We even have, I can send it to you after. I have like a PDF they can print out and fill it out. Perfect. Literally they can just fill it out nice and easy. And then right away, again, it immediately tells you, where is my gap? What have I done here that I need to actually fill this out? And then now you're like, okay, I can evaluate. Here's where I have to make changes. So now that you know that's where you have to make changes, you can bring it in. But the other nice thing it does is when you're at a conference, you hear a great idea from the stage. You're like, great, where does this fit in my framework? If it's in the part that you're the strongest, you're like, maybe I don't have to spend my time and resources implementing this. But if someone comes up with a great idea and you're like, hey, that's in the part that I'm a little bit weaker on, let's take that and plug that in right now. Now you have something to like help you figure out which ideas I hear, where they fit in right away. And when you hire someone to help you with your marketing, you'd be like, here's where that fits in. Or like, and you'd be like, hey, here's our strategy for marketing. It's laid out. Make sure you're working on this side of things with us. And it becomes a really convenient tool to get them to do that as well.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So I think with that, what we want to know, so we got the link here. We'll put in the YouTube description for you guys. What we're working on is just making sure that every agent, every mortgage broker is prepared for the year coming, for the year of 2024. Remember, guys, it is going to be, it was a tough year this year, right? And everyone is knowing that, everyone talks about it. Transactions are down like 40% across North America. It's no wonder. Every prop tech company that I talk to that serves agents, their revenue is also down because agents didn't do enough business. So very, very similar thing across all the industry. But the biggest thing is we know that the whole marketing can stop when the markets kind of go down. And we want to make sure that we leave you guys with some tips for going into 2024 with a okay budget. Don't overspend. Make sure that you control every bits of it. But it's gonna be really bad if you actually turn off your marketing for good. Because when the market picks up again, guess what? You will be out of leads. It takes like 3 to 6 months to convert someone. So guess what? When the market is hot again in the spring or summer or even 2025, you're out of leads. So you can't really do business. So what's your advice on that, Andrew?
I mean, you always need a plan, right? Like you got to get it there and you just do the work.
Do the work. I think that's the hardest part.
It's an interesting one that we've seen the last little while. Like the people who haven't had a down year this year, it's like they're doubling down on working more, right? And a lot of people complaining about like my business down a lot. It's like they've kind of just accepted that the market's down and said, all right, like the market's down. What are you going to do? Right. So it's
interesting. We were talking about this as well. Like top agents are spending more in this market if they know the advertising works. And the agents that just threw money at the wall, hoping that it sticks, they have stopped their advertising. So it's interesting. It's going to be less noise, but more effective. But you have to make sure that you are doing the work. So if you generated the lead, do the calls. Like don't rely on a CRM. I mean, the CRM does the thing, but you got to do the last step, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's the biggest thing. And that's the most important thing that we keep not seeing agents do. So any other advice that you want to leave our audience with, Andrew?
Map out your business before you start throwing everything at the wall. Map out what you're doing.
Excellent advice.
So that you have an idea. Like you don't want to start generating leads if you don't know how you're going to convert them.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. And guys, make sure if you're in Canada, make sure you go to Andrew's website, read realestatemagazine.ca. There's a ton of industry knowledge there, so make sure you check it out. I'm sure it's self-explanatory. People know it. It's been around for ages. And it's been around actually since 1989. That's I
was 2 years old.
I was gonna ask you how old are you? So anyway, but the whole thing is make sure that you are doing your business plan. Make sure you subscribe to Andrew's newsletters, and make sure that you do your ROI calculations on everything that you do. Do not turn off your marketing for 2024. You're gonna see a dry 2025 coming after. So make sure that you map out everything and make sure you go strong and do the work, as Andrew said. So thank you so much for joining, guys. And we'll see you in 2 weeks again.